Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer. Hey guys, welcome in. We didn't want to go through the full run of everything, just kind of a bit of a somber weekend for Niner fans. And I want to start with a story. Welcome in everyone that is here this Monday morning. I want to start 16 years ago, August preseason game in Indianapolis. And I went to that game. Anthony Dixon rushed for 100 yards and he threw his gloves to me in the stands, and I still have them. And 16 years later, he was not able to revive Aldon Smith, and I don't know why. Haven't. Just can't stop thinking about that. Like just a interesting thing to happen where a player throws you his gloves and then is not in the news for I don't know how many years. Like, have you not thought about that player and how we haven't even thought of Aldon Smith necessarily? Like, you and I talked before the show. He's been kind of a mentor for a number of teams, but overall, unless you're a friend or a family member of his, like his name doesn't get brought up a ton. And Johnny was the one to break the news to me, and instantly I saw it on all the other Niner sites and everything. But at first I didn't see it, and I just couldn't believe it. And the story then just that unfolds. We'll get into that and make sure we have our story straight. But just really sad for a guy that we are both older than him. Johnny and I are both
Mhm.
older than Aldon Smith. And so just man, we just feel for his family and close friends that were there, and thankful that he was bringing joy and pizza. Like on his last days of breath, he was trying to give back after admitting on multiple podcasts that he wasn't 100% in the most healthiest of mindsets. He admitted it, and I don't know if that was part of it necessarily. But Johnny, good morning. What's your take on all this?
Man, seeing the news come across the timeline, yeah, when I even forget what happened, I believe it was Saturday night, just really threw me. I mean, uh, anybody who was a 49ers fan deeply during the Harbaugh years, I mean, Aldon Smith and the Harbaugh years were that was like peanut butter and jelly. Is that's who you remember from that time? And if we really think to you know, players that had the biggest impact for that team having a turnaround. Understand if we remember, we had gone through 9 years of dark ages as
Tim
a football
Rattay and
franchise, and yeah, Tim Rattay and just the defenses were not great by any stretch of the imagination. We had Patrick Willis, like Patrick Willis was our guy on defense, and that was like they had signed Justin Smith. Justin Smith had really not broken out like he did once Aldon got there. Everybody credits all Justin Smith for having Aldon Smith realize his potential, and I will say I think it was actually vice versa. Well, they made each other better, but that Justin Smith did not become the incredible player he was until Aldon Smith arrived on the scene, and they were able to do what they did and terrorize opposing defenses. But the 49ers, remember, we were picking 7th overall in the 2011 draft. They were coming off of a 6-10 year. It was a bad season. They were not a good team. Mike Singletary had just been fired.
yeah,
Um, this was a team that had so many question marks around it, and everybody was thinking this was going to be a 2-year rebuild for Harbaugh, and he didn't know what was going to be happening with quarterback. Needed to go find a quarterback. They needed to find all these pieces on the defense. They needed to rebuild the offensive line, and they needed to find some receivers and all this stuff. And then they draft this guy, number 7th overall, who had been dealing with a foot injury the year before. was a young guy, had only spent 2 years in college, and he came out, but he's got almost 40-inch arms, and that year, we saw one of the greatest rookie defensive performances ever, ever. And it allowed a 49ers team that wasn't great offensively to make it to the NFC Championship game because nobody could pass the ball effectively against that team. They couldn't run the ball against that team. And if you remember at the time, he wasn't even playing full time. He was a specialist pass rusher during that rookie season. And he still had 13 and a half, 14 sacks that year. And yeah, I mean, NY Niners has a right. He at the start of 2011, everyone expected the 49ers to suck for luck because Andrew Luck had played under Jim Harbaugh
and
at
Stanford
Stanford.
and right
And
there.
so everybody thought that we were going to tank for luck, like that the team was just going to be really bad and try and get Andrew Luck to that Harbaugh was going to purposefully tank the team. And suddenly you had this Aldon Smith guy show up and transform that defense, along with, Navarro Bowman coming into his own, and then his play just elevates Justin Smith. They bring Dante Whitner over. Deshaun Goldson moves into a full-time starting spot, and suddenly that's like that probably was the best defense in the league because their offense had the most 3 and outs. So, they were on the field so much for so many series, and they kept getting off the field, and it was because all of Aldon Smith they could keep getting off the field. And so I keep seeing a lot of stuff about people talking about, man, such wasted talent. Oh, what could have been, greatest what if stories. And I go, if at this point where his life has been and everything, we can't go back and change the past. He couldn't have gone back and changed the past. It's it's not for me as much about the what ifs as about what was. That 3-year stretch was one of the greatest periods for us as 49ers fans. I mean, no, it wasn't the dynasty years of winning the Super Bowls, and it felt like they always got just a little bit short on everything. But it also marked the moment, the end of the darkest years. Where since that point, we had 2 years in there with Tom Sula and Chip Kelly where we were completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
But we didn't go through 9 years. And what changed all of that was the moment they drafted Aldon Smith. And he is as much a part of returning, helping us as fans get to a point where our team is actually relevant, and we actually can complain about not winning a Super Bowl, not why did our team end the season with only 4 wins as anybody. And that 3-year run was absolutely incredible, and his second season maybe the greatest season we've ever seen from a 49er on defense ever. And that includes Patrick Willis with some of the incredible seasons he had and the things we watched Pat do, and includes Nick Bosa with his Defensive Player of the Year award. It includes Fred Warner with what we've seen with him do. That we have to remember that season overshadowed Carlos Rogers having 7 interceptions in a year.
That was my guy too, Carlos Rogers. Yeah, that's a good one.
Like, everybody looked at what Carlos Rogers did and they were like,
Well,
yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool.
When you
But
have
you probably wouldn't have gotten that.
33.5 sacks in your first 2 years, that's going to overshadow if Carlos Rogers had 10 interceptions.
Well, it was just everybody understood that Carlos got a lot of those picks because of Aldon Smith, and when we talk about force multipliers on a team, he was a force multiplier. I mean, that is as much you can say as a force multiplier as anybody. When you look at Myles Garrett's season this year, the only difference between Aldon Smith's second season and Myles Garrett's season this last year was 1 game, because that game against the Patriots, Myles Garrett had 4 sacks. If you give Aldon Smith that same game, on a 17-game season, because Aldon played 16. Him and Miles have the same season. Like, that's how incredible that year was. Is it because it
52 sacks in 75 games, Johnny.
and it was even like
That's
after
crazy.
those first 2 years, it was 32 and a half sacks in 33 games. I mean, just wild.
Just stupid. Yeah.
Um,
Just ridiculous.
just an incredible player. Somebody who, yes, had incredible talent. And did he fully live up to it? No. But my goodness, when he was good, when he was out there, he was one of the best we ever got to see play the game.
It's 42 sacks in 43 games is the exact
Yeah.
number. I mean, just think about that is crazy. Like, you forget, you truly do forget because it's a little bit overshadowed of like, oh, it was too short lived. But like when you look back at those 3 seasons, like NFC Championship, Super Bowl, like you can't ask for much more. I mean, only one team out of 30, like whatever, wins the Super Bowl. Like, so to be in the final four and then the final two in 3 years after where we had been is it's really hard. It's really hard to top. I mean, that's crazier than the New York Knicks, in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
it-
And I mean, I have a lot of great memories. That team is why my wife is a 49ers fan, and it was part of how I knew like she was the one. Because that NFC divisional round game against the Saints, she broke my couch celebrating. We were dating at the time, and she was jumping up and down on the couch and just like stomping, and didn't even mean to, just like jumped up and stomped down on the couch and broke part of the couch. And I was like, all right, she's the one. I know. Um, in that year, and just, yes, so he went through, I mean, many years of struggling with addiction and legal troubles, and those are well documented. Um, clearly was battling demons throughout his life. But I will say, the last several years he'd been sober. He really had committed his life to improving others' life, and this is it was like his second career, that second chapter of his life, or third chapter, that we absolutely shouldn't forget, that this was somebody who over the last couple of years had said, didn't look back on his past and say, man, what a wasted opportunity, and leave it at that. But he said, can somebody else not make the same mistakes I did? Can I help anybody else not go down the same path I did? And that is not as common. That is an absolutely admirable trait, and we should be remembering him as that, not the wasted opportunity, but more of how he made the most out of his wasted opportunity. Um, because we know that he had been mentoring the Jacksonville Jaguars players, the Raiders, that he'd been working with the teams, sharing his mistakes, his vulnerabilities of where he went wrong, what he did wrong for too long, that he had just last week come and spoken to the 49ers as rookies, that he'd made himself available, that this was somebody who was on his last day on earth, was delivering pizzas uh, to the homeless, um, and trying to bring, betterment to other people's lives. Whenever anybody has done that with their lives, and has chosen to do that, that's 100% admirable. And at that point for me, I say, yeah, there may have been some things in your past, but that doesn't define who you are now. And how he left this earth was not the same person as the wasted talent guy. It was somebody who was trying to make the world around him better, and trying to improve the lives of others, and pour into others' lives. And that is a trait that we don't often find uh, in everyone. And so I want, for me, that's the Aldon Smith I remember now.
yeah, and then I want to look back at it too. Just man, I still think the ferociousness that he had and the long arms and
Oh,
how
he was a
other
matchup
teams,
nightmare.
how like you couldn't do anything with it. Like you couldn't. He had an answer for everything. It was just looking back, just unreal. We were talking about also again before the show, how other players on his team and not on his team we're still talking about him in the same way, that he was just an absolute nightmare, and it's just crazy to see.
Yeah, and we have that. I have that clip of Joe Staley. If you haven't seen it, it started to make the rounds again of Joe Staley and Trent Williams talking about
You're a
one
girl dad.
Aldon Smith.
I'm a girl dad. I got 2 girls. I was telling my daughter that I was coming up here to do the interview with you, and I asked her, "What would you ask Mr. Trent?" And so these are 3 questions for my daughter. You can keep them short if you want, but
I love it.
she wants to know. She's 7 years old, by the way.
Oh, I got an 8-year-old.
So she says, "Who is the hardest player that you've ever played against?"
You know what? When people ask me that, the
Wonder if we're
first
gonna say the same
name,
person.
I think we are. The first name that pops out,
What can we do on the count of 3? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Aldon Smith.
Yeah, no question. I only had to face him in practice.
Yeah, I
You
know
actually had
that's
to go against him in the game.
Yeah, that's even worse. I
Yeah.
had some sleepless nights because of God, dog. But I always, when people ask me that, he the first face, not even name. I just see him in his uniform, like from like a huddle side of view. I just like look at 5 yards and I can just see the long arms. It's like that's who pops in my mind. But you know, I guess his obviously with the off the field stuff that he had, a lot of people don't. When you say that, they don't understand or they can't relate to it because they relate everything to stats and how much what they see on TV. You know, but
The recency bias and all that.
when I just say a player, you just tell me who the hardest player I ever had to play against. It was Aldon Smith.
He was by far, him and Justin made me
that was-
so much better because I was able to practice against them.
I was about to say, imagine in the game, oh, it's a recipe for disaster. It just-
That's
Man,
Yeah,
that just-
and
it makes you
and
smile,
and
man.
understand both these guys also played against and practiced against Nick Bosa. Um, you know, we forget that they and so you know and Miles Garrett, both of them have played against and practiced against Nick Bosa and Miles Garrett, and they're both saying Aldon Smith, just an incredible player, burned brightly for a short period of time. I mean, we often Bruce Smith is like usually the gold standard of guys, you know, getting sacks because he had 200 sacks. He did it in 279 games. And when you look at that, what that means that a guy had the amount of sacks and the amount of games he had is just incredible. It's unreal.
Yeah. Just the positive of it, of thinking about how it's very known now that he really did turn his life around. I mean, that gives you a good confidence when you hear a story like this. It's just nice to know that someone who very in front of the whole world had a struggle and then just was disappeared. And so a lot of people, non 49er fans don't have that much of a reason to keep up with Aldon Smith, but every couple years I feel like his name comes up in 49er stuff just because he was that great. But if you're a fan of the Colts or the Dolphins, like, you don't really have a reason to ever bring up Aldon Smith. You simply don't. And so you just remember him as the guy that was really good for the 49ers and then could not figure out his life, and that's about it. But for this to happen where he was doing something like this, like, does kind of give you that perspective, and that's something for us, for 49er fans, is this is a game. We get to come on we're on YouTube live with some of you chatting. like, what are we talking about? Like, this is just a fun thing that we get to do. We're passionate about it. You won't find two more fans more passionate than Johnny and I. His wife sends me pictures of him during a game where he is like a coach with his eyeballs about to pop out of his socket and hit the TV screen because he's sitting way too close to the television. So I know that Johnny's passionate. I know I'm passionate. My parents are super passionate, you know, and all this for a fun game, and people's lives are changed and people do things besides football. I mean, let's say he was a Hall of Famer and that he broke the sack record. Let's just say he's still in his upper 30s. He wouldn't be playing right now
Right.
no matter what, would be the deal. So, like, what are we talking about? He still could be delivering those pizzas to help kids, whether he was a Hall of Fame player or not, because he ended up being a Hall of Fame person. And that's
Right.
what I think is the takeaway,
No, I
for
I
me
think
at
you
least.
nailed it there because, I mean, there's some people who are in the Hall of Fame who've been absolutely terrible people in real life, and have
Yeah.
been nothing but selfish and been people who the only impact they have is what they provided on a football field. And I'll tell you, it's just like what Joe had talked about. There's recency bias that will fade. That will fade at some point. But,
Yeah.
a true legacy and for me, the greatest mark of a man can be what kind of legacy do you leave by? For Aldon Smith, the people who've known him and that he's changed their life the last several years, um, he has a great legacy. And so, again, it hits me seeing this as somebody who's 5 years younger than me. And it's hard and is unbelievably sad. It's tragic for a young life to be gone uh this way. And we'll find out more in the days and weeks to come exactly
Yeah.
what happened. I'm watching the highlights of the 2013 game, 49ers versus Redskins at the time, um on my other screen here while this is happening. Just watched Alden get a sack against Trent Williams, and you see them both walking back afterwards, and it just reminds you of how long this dude's arms were. um because Trent has 34-inch arms and their shoulders sit at the same height, but Alden's arms hang down about 3 or 4 inches farther, it looks like, than Trent Williams's. And it's just like, golly, man, that dude, there he is getting a pressure on Robert Griffin that flushes him out, and Ahmad Brooks finishes the sack. Because Trent, or because Aldon Smith got the pressure on Trent first. Um, Man, just a special player, special guy. Um, and you know, and prayers to his family and all those close to him, because their grief is still going.
Yeah, and will be for a while. Like you said, we'll find out probably more throughout this week. Some more reports will come out. Now, what are you thinking for Friday? Will you have time to go over? Are we still thinking
Yeah,
film
yeah, we're
or
probably still looking at Ashton Davis, maybe some Jaden Duggar. I don't think there's going to be that much there on Ashton Davis. I'm almost done with it. I was planning on doing it this morning, and then everything happened over the weekend, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't feel right to just gloss over
gloss
a,
over it? Yeah, let's
a
talk
life
about
like
it. And
this. And so it doesn't feel right to
yeah,
move on to anything else. That's why I didn't put commercials on this episode. So doesn't
yeah,
feel right to do anything like that. So appreciate everybody joining us. Man, take the moments you have in life, and make the most of it. Is my best advice of that, and build a legacy to leave. People won't always remember the major contracts you had, because people are remembering the contracts Aldon Smith didn't have. I'm like, Aldon Smith made more money than 99% of the world. And so he achieved success. Like, people aren't remembering the success he actually did achieve. He achieved a level of success very few human beings ever will. And they're still talking about the success he didn't achieve. Um, but what matters most is the legacy of impact on other people's lives he left behind. So find a way to impact somebody's life around you this week. But until next time, stay safe and stay healthy. And as always, go Niners.